Krylancelo spent his childhood training to be a sorcerer, but he was always second best until he met a dragon and absorbed its soul, becoming the most powerful sorcerer. At the start of the episode, we see a girl named Azali using the Sword of Bartenders to test a new spell with Childman. Krylancelo was concerned about her and rushed to her location. But when he arrives, he sees his master collapse on the floor and Azali, who was holding her head at an altar. She tells him not to look at her and that he should leave. He couldn't move or turn away. At the same time, he notices wings sprouting from Azali's back. Her expression takes him aback. He begins to panic. She tries to fly up and escape as she watches her transform into a massive dragon. However, a nearby sorceress notices her and attempts to murder her. Krylancelo tells her that their magic is null and void. But she takes off while he calls her name. The tower attempted to conceal the failed experiment by burying her. He, on the other hand, is adamantly opposed to this. He thought that she was still alive and well. Feeling betrayed, he leaves the school and adopts the alias Orphen. The tower, however, could not accept losing someone, and Orphen spent the next 5 years searching for the Sword of Bartenders, which was the only way to find his sister. He discovers that the everlasting family is guarding the sword. He and his friends converse with the family. Cleo, the youngest daughter, enters the room and declares that her family does not believe them. They're also calling the cops right now. But she believes him and tells him where it is. Azali arrives at the location and destroys the roof. He recovers from his shock and approaches her, hoping to jog her memory of him. He's been searching for her non-stop, but she casts a spell against him. He manages to block it, but she flies away with the sword in its mouth. Outside, 9 mages with his master attempt to attack her. But Orphen removes half of them. Childman and the rest of the mages cast their spells. They are forcing Orphen to use his most powerful magic to block 5 spells simultaneously. Orphen tries to tell Childman that the dragon is Azali, but the dragon becomes terrified and attempts to kill him with a spell. Orphen stops it, and Azali escapes with the sword. He later runs into his master, who tells him about the failed experiment. Childman also mentions that Azali has been sleeping like him for the past 5 years. But now they need to find her, so he asks Orphen for assistance. He accepts the proposal but must first repair the everlasting residence's damages. As a thank you gift, Cleo gives him a ring. And Orphen notices it's Azali's old ring. He recalls that the ring can protect the wearer from white magic, Azali's most powerful spell. So he eats it to conceal the fact that he has it. The next day, he joins Childman's group, discovering they intend to murder her. He separates from them and searches for her on his own. A massive fire breaks out in the woods when he calls out her name. He becomes aware of her presence, and she attacks him with magical flames. He avoids it, and they engage in a magical battle. He begins to be overpowered by the dragon's magical flames, suffering injuries all over his body. He believes she has completely lost herself, she is no longer the same sweet Azali but a monster. The spell transports him back in time. He believes he is about to die. However, Childman and his crew appear to be casting spells on her. The white sorcerer uses his white magic to try to seal her. But the spell empowered her, and she defeated him. The black sorcerers are killed in the battle, and Childman fights the dragon to death. Orphen saved Azali just as he was about to launch a fatal attack on her. Childman, on the other hand, betrays his student by stabbing Orphen. He uses magic to overpower and defeat Azali, ripping her dragon body apart. Childman heals Orphen, explaining that he only did it because he wanted to help Azali. Orphen rushes over to the severed head of the dragon. He collapses to his knees in grief over Azali's death. She's known him since childhood and has always been there for him when he needed it. He couldn't, however, save her from this fate. Through telepathy, he hears the dragon's final words explaining what happened. Orphen confronts Childman, who is about to leave the next day. However, Orphen observes that Childman is speaking more than usual. He reveals that he knows Childman is Azali. She had previously swapped her soul for Childman's. He wonders how she dared to murder their master. Azali was in love with Childman, who rejected her, unbeknownst to him. She wanted to be strong enough to get his attention, but the experiment failed. Childman has been attempting to kill her ever since to conceal the fact that he was conducting the investigation. Orphen, on the other hand, lets her live, expecting her to regret her actions. Before leaving, she explains that her transformation resulted from a major secret in their world. In a flashback, Orphen's story begins when his parents abandon him, and he is taken to an orphanage. He grew up with Azali, whom he considers to be his sister. Azali was revealed to be a trickster as they grew older, constantly playing pranks on him. However, she was identified as a potential sorcerer a few years later and was taken to the Tower of Fangs. Krylancelo saw her and his cousin Tish leave him behind and promised to see them again. A few years later, he was admitted to the Tower of Fangs and studied under Childman, one of the world's most powerful sorcerers. Childman designed his class to train students to be assassins who carry out missions for the Tower of Fangs. But, at the same time, his class was the most difficult. Azali decides to go all out against her master during their magic practice. Their spells clashed, almost destroying the entire structure. However, Krylancelo uses his power to cancel out their magic, establishing himself as the strongest sorcerer. Childman has since made him his successor and taught him all his skills. Azali, on the other hand, was madly in love with her master and desperately wanted him to notice her. As a result, she always sabotaged various training exercises and inventions to get his attention and test them. One of their classmates built a new robot one day. Azali, on the other hand, took advantage of it by casting a spell that caused it to go berserk, forcing Krylancelo to use one of his spells to clean up the mess. She takes him to their former orphanage in Azali's family grave, but then she vanishes. He keeps looking for her until he hears a voice. If he wants to save his sister, he must return to the orphanage. He rushes to the location of his most cherished childhood memories. When he arrives, he is attacked but manages to repel it. He makes it to the attic just in time to see Azali's head on the floor. Azali's head vanishes as a mysterious shadow woman appears. He believes it is an illusion, but the shadow assures him that it is what will occur in the future. The shadow taunts him, but the enraged Krylancelo uses his spell to defeat her, destroying the entire structure. Azali is shocked and hides in a nearby house. She cast a spell to project herself as a shadow illusion to test his abilities. She quickly realizes, however, that he can easily overpower her. Krylancelo is crying, lamenting Azali's death when she appears out of nowhere. He realizes she is to blame and demands an apology from her. Instead, she thanks him and warns him to find her if anything bad happens to her in the future. In the present, Orphen then embarks on his journey to the Tower of Fangs, where he can investigate the secret Azali mentioned. He is, however, surprised to see Cleo and Magic, who have crept into his horse carriage. Cleo wishes to embark on an adventure to reclaim the sword, and Magic hopes Orphen will teach him some spells. They get into trouble when they reach the outskirts of Taffram due to Magic's practice. Orphen can talk things out, but his necklace is missing. He returns to find the man he had just spoken. However, he was dead. He notices a note and his necklace suspended in a dagger against the wall. Who is Childman's true successor? They set up camp for the fight, but a robbed man attacked them unexpectedly. The attacker approaches Orphen using teleporting magic and attacks everyone with a single spell. Orphen gets to his feet and asks how he knows the Tower of Fang's special spell. The attacker responds by asking if he is the true heir. Orphen attacked him again, but this time the man was too strong for him and was easily pinned down. The attacker then killed Magic and Cleo, but Letitia, Azali's cousin, and Orphen's childhood friend, arrived and threw a dagger at his arm, causing him to miss. Everyone was shocked when the man revealed his face. He's Krylancelo's 5-year-ago doppelganger. He flees using his teleportation spell. An Orphen travels to Taffram with his group to meet Letitia. She informs them of the recent assassination of Tower elders and how the Tower suspects him. She invites them to her home and asks them to stay for a while. Orphen decides to tell Letitia about what happened to Azali and Childman late at night. However, the killer they sought appeared at Letitia's house. Krylancelo is his given name. Unlike Orphen, the true one, he is capable of carrying on Childman's legacy and performing assassination tasks. Krylancelo, the impostor, claims to be Childman's long-desired successor and then vanishes. Letitia then approaches Orphen and informs him that chaos has ensued since Childman's death. Because several sorcerers want Childman's position, especially since Orphen isn't there to succeed him. And the impostor intends to murder Orphen to succeed Childman. He then learns that the impostor kidnapped Cleo and took her to Childman's house. Orphen dashed into Childman's house, determined to confront the impostor Krylancelo alone. The impostor faces him there. The impostor reveals that the real reason he is fighting Orphen is Azali. He explains that Azali requires him for a larger plot and that she wishes for Orphen to regain his former powers. On the other hand, he wants to kill Orphen because Azali already has a stronger and more reliable impostor than him. Orphen struggles to deal with the impostor Krylancelo, who wields the power of the Sword of Balltenders. He eventually defeated the impostor Krylancelo thanks to his unwavering dedication to protecting his friends. But then Azali shows up and explains why Childman chose Orphen as his heir. Azali believes she has a good chance of defeating Childman with the white magic she has learned. As a result, Childman trained Orphen and taught him all the skills he needed to murder her because he knew a major secret in this world. A masked man attacks Orphen after he awakens in Letitia's house. He was inquiring about the Browning family map. He is perplexed because he has no idea what the man is talking about. As Clayam and Magic arrive, the masked man flees. Letitia then hands him a document stating that he is still a Tower member. According to the document, he had to leave the Tower of Fangs to complete a mission. Orphen is summoned to Forte's office, where he runs into an old classmate who is now filling Childman's position. According to Forte, Krylan wishes to take Childman's position in the Tower of Fangs and the Witch Association. And he attempted to assassinate him to take over his role. As a result, he asks Orphen to help him defeat Krylan and his henchmen before they slaughter all of Childman's students. Orphen confronts Krylan about the new information and the masked man inside Letitia's house. Krylan, on the other hand, appeared unconcerned when he stated that his men had discovered the motionless. Orphen then threatens to kill him if he comes into contact with any of his friends. Krylan, on the other hand, warns him not to make him an enemy, mentioning that he should have murdered him when Childman accepted him as a student. When Orphen returns, he discovers Clayam lying on the road with a wound on her head. He was told that a masked man assaulted her. However, the man quickly fled, and Letitia pursued him that he must now complete the task. Orphen couldn't contain his rage because they had dared to harm those closest to him. And he was determined to exact vengeance on those who had attacked his loved ones. That night, Orphen meets Azali, who informs him about the Browning family map sought by Krylan's students. She claimed it was the king of magic books, containing the most powerful spell capable of destroying the world. Childman was the book's previous owner. She instructed Hydrant to attack him to keep him from becoming a court magician. Orphen nearly killed him then, leaving him with only a scar on his face. As a result, he was rejected as a royal magician. Hydrant reveals that he is uninterested in the magic book and only seeks vengeance for what happened 5 years ago. They get into a fistfight, and Orphen uses the skills he learned from Childman to defeat Hydrant. Hydrant reminds him why he must first learn those skills, to kill Azali. Orphen and his students are preparing to confront them and take their lives. On the other hand, Forte informs Krylan that he and his classmates have committed several murders and will face punishment. Azali appears on the scene, revealing she was responsible for the tower's chaos. Krylan tries to attack her, but Orphen steps in to protect his sister and kills him with Childman's ultimate technique. Azali reveals that she went to any length to obtain the magic book. And teleports away while reminding Orphen of his promise to fulfill it and find her. Thanks for watching. If this series is the most liked in my anime recap production, I will make a part 2. Also, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to help me make more content.